Hey guys, I'm commercial photographer Tony Roslund. Welcome to my studio for another episode of Q&A. Today we'll be talking about combining images, interior and exterior exposures for architecture, an abundance of hot glue, strobe, speed light or continuous light for product photography, and finally what to charge for catalog shots. Should be a good one. Right then, let's get started. First question comes in, I can't see, I'm getting old. First question comes in from Randy. Tony, great to see you putting out more YouTube content. Thanks, I enjoy it. I think the first video I stumbled on way back was the one organizing your studio. That was a good video. Anyway, it would be great to see if you could address how you approach shooting and editing interior images with exterior views. I feel like sometimes I'm making it way too hard and curious as to your workflow in camera and post for these types of images. For me, the biggest challenge is the light bloom around the window frames. Anyway, thanks for the content. Well, Randy, you are not alone. We all battle with that same bloom issue. There's a couple of ways to combat it. I shoot with continuous lights when I shoot architecture. I'm not using strobe. So for me, what I do is bracket. I'll do 2 stops under, 1 shot at baseline, and then 2 stops over. And then usually with that, combined with the fact that the raw images, I have enough dynamic range that I can actually pull an image together in post that is properly exposed for outside and inside. However, sometimes I have to pay close attention depending on the day. If it's really sunny or something, that I may have to take an additional exposure, specifically paying attention to those window frames. If you shoot with strobe, you can simply blast those window frames from the inside, balancing the inside and the exterior exposure at the same time, not worrying about whether the strobe shows up in the actual window or not, because you can drop in another shot for outside anyway. You're just trying to make sure that your exterior exposure and your interior exposure are balanced so that you can save yourself a lot of headache in post. I get it. So hopefully one of those methods will work for you, and let's move on, shall we? Next question comes from Yaf Sparkle. Hi Tony, thanks for the opportunity, and here's my question. When I shoot a piece of jewelry, say a ring, many times I hot glue it on the surface. So do I. How do I retouch that hot glue out? I have your tutorial, RGG product, and followed you for a long time. However, on this one, no clue. Stamp doesn't do the trick for me. Well, if you have so much hot glue that you can't even stamp clone it out, then you're using way too much hot glue. It just takes a little dab, like a pinhead. You just need to keep the jewelry from falling over. You shouldn't even see it, really. I don't know that I even have to edit hot glue out. I'll link below to a video on jewelry photography that I did. You'll kind of see what it is that I do, and hopefully that will give you some idea on how to approach that. But my guess is you just need to dial back the glue gun. Don't get so crazy there when you're applying all that stuff. So let's move on. Tony Tunnel. Hi Tony, love these type of Q&A exchanges. Yeah, me too. How do you deal with shooting exteriors and weather or other reasons that might mess up schedule? I'm here in Northern Europe and it's pretty hard to be accurate with weather reports and planned shoots. Also, when shooting private residences, there are sometimes furniture or other details that are delayed, and that in turn postpones the shoot dates. Or kids are sick, etc. How do you deal with these fluctuations in the schedule? Right now, I have enough of an editing backlog that I try to do those things on planned shoot days that get postponed, but would still love to have more of a system for this. P.S. I ordered the DigiPlate and bracket. Thanks for being one of the few to show it in actual use. Greetings from Estonia. Tonu, first of all, thanks for ordering the DigiPlate stuff. That stuff is rad. Hopefully you used the promo code that I have. I'm gonna post it down below if anybody's interested, or first of all, if you don't know what he's talking about, it's the DigiPlate products that hang on the tripod, hold your laptop. I have other videos about it, just go back and look. I'll post a link down below along with a promo code. If you ever wanna buy anything from there, use my ambassador code, save yourself 15%. Their stuff is awesome. Moving on, let's see. Exteriors and weather. So You should have in your contract something about weather postponements or delays, and it's probably a fee like a half-day rate or something like that. You should also have something where if the client cancels, you still get paid for your day rate or your half-day or however you want to work it in your contract. That's the official answer. In reality, we're trying to feed the family, make the mortgage payment, pay our cars, so I don't always stick to by the book per se. If I have clients who treat me fairly, then I treat them fairly. Weather is out of their control, so typically I do the same thing you're doing, dude. I just use the time to edit or to make YouTube videos or whatever the case is, and it keeps my client happy. They're not worried that I'm nickel and diming them for everything, and it just keeps them at ease, and they don't have a problem calling me for anything they ever need that has to do with photography. It allows me to keep my clients a lot longer, allows me to keep my clients happy, and in the end, I just think it's a better relationship all the way around. Having said that, if somebody were just blatantly disrespected my time and I show up for a shoot and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to call and tell you we don't need you today, well, then you're getting charged, So I just try to be reasonable and think about how I would want to be treated by a client, or by a service provider that I was hiring. So things happen, I get it, I try to be as reasonable as possible, and that's my advice to you. Moving on. Dan Thompson. Tony, on product photography, what is your preference in light? Studio strobes, flash units, or continuous lighting? Now, I assume by flash units you mean speed lights. So I went over this in my RGG EDU tutorial on product photography. Clearly you don't have that, or you would already know the answer to this. So my first recommendation is to go check that out. I'll put a link below. But to answer your question, if I'm in the studio, I like using studio strobes. If I'm on location for architecture or something, I use continuous lights. I don't know, just the way that my brain works. When I shoot architecture, I like to paint with light. I like to light things and see what it's going to do to my exposure. When I'm shooting products and things in the studio, my brain works completely differently, and I can actually see the outcome before I even fire the strobes off. And so I already know how I want to mold that picture in my mind. So I use the studio strobes. Now, speed lights may not be strong enough or powerful enough for some things, although with today's ISOs and the cameras and the capability that they have, that's less of an issue these days. I no longer have the big pro photo packs that I used to have. I had these big 4800 watt second packs with all these heads and everything. Because I was shooting with a phase 1, you had to shoot at ISO 50 because anything above 100 was grainy as hell. And so shooting at ISO 50, stopped down for whatever reason. I might be stopped down, and before you know it, I need 4800 watt seconds. For a while, as we started moving in the DSLR and I could crank my ISO a little bit farther and a little bit farther, I would have to bleed off the pack, which means plug in all the heads, because every time you plug in a head to a power pack, it cuts your power in half. So if I needed one light, I'd have to plug in all 4 and bleed the other 3 off in another room so they're firing, not exposing my, affecting my exposure, just so I could get the power low enough on the pack for what I needed it to do, especially when shooting jewelry. This is where I like the B1s. I love my ProPhoto B1s. I've got 4 of them and I use them all the time. Besides the fact that there's no cables and I can put them anywhere I need to, and I don't have to worry about being near plugs or power packs, you can also attenuate the power really low. I mean, I can get that power really low so that if I'm shooting jewelry, I can put out just a kiss of light. Don't have to use ND filters on the lights or any of that stuff to try to knock the power down. So I love them. Hopefully that answers your question. But you can certainly use speed lights. In fact, I would like to check out one of those new ProPhoto A1s actually. So if any of you guys have one of those, leave a comment. Let me know what you think, because I'm kind of digging on those. They look pretty neat. So let's move on. Nap Studios. Any tips you have about dealing with clients when it comes to technical stuff that can happen on shoots? Like products are not in great condition, or clothing needs extra retouching or ironing, etc. Overall, also, what are some basic pricing for catalog shot images? Well, let me start with the second half of that first. Pricing for catalog. You need to figure out what your day rate is, and you may already know. But you do that by going through the whole cost of doing business calculations, and you figure out what you need to make in a day, hence what your day rate is. That doesn't mean you have to always charge your day rate to people, or nobody even needs to know what your day rate is. It can be a formula that you have that you use to figure out what to charge a client. For example, let's say, for argument's sake, your day rate was $500, which is low, but just to make my brain happy. And client brings you product and you think you can get through 20 of those products in a day. That means you're basically getting $25 per product. So that's your fee to the client, $25 per product. This will change depending on the complexity of the product. So if a client brings you a box of chrome spheres to photograph, that's going to take a little bit longer. So, you may only get half as many done in a day, in which case the price is twice what it was for the other widgets you shot. Hopefully you see where I'm going with that. So there's no set price that I have, at least, because every product is different. I'm going to be able to get through more products in a day sometimes than I can other days, based on what the product is and how difficult it is to shoot. You can ask your client to bring you one of their products that you can use as a test, so you can test shoot it, see how long it's going to take you, and give you a better idea of how complex that is, especially if it's a product that you're unfamiliar with or that you've never shot before, if you don't have experience shooting that particular surface or finish or whatever. So don't hesitate to do that. As far as the condition of the products, I always ask my clients to bring me the best product they have on the shelf. And I can tell you right out of the gate that if it's a prototype, it's going to be blemished to all hell. That's just the way prototypes are. They always require a ton of post, so work that into your budget. If they bring me a product and it's full of scratches and things like that, and it's the best that they have, then I tell them up front, hey man, this has got a bunch of post work that's going to need to be done. Here's why, and I show it to them and explain it to them so that there's no surprises later. That's the biggest deal with me, is I don't like to surprise clients. I always want them to know where we stand so that I don't run into problems after the fact, You can also ask what their budget is, and this can help you identify what you can do for that client within that budget. For example, if their budget is only your half-day rate, then you can only shoot that many products, or they're going to have to come up with more money or change the scope of work or whatever. By scope of work, let me give you an example. Let's say you want to shoot, a client comes to you with swim goggles and they say, how much to shoot these? Well, I don't know, how long is a rope? I mean, that's not enough information. So I need more from you. I need to know what your budget is. And they go, well, I don't want to tell you that. They think you're going to rake them over the coals or something, but it's important that we know that budget because we have to figure out what we can accomplish for them and maximize their marketing dollar. Going back to our example, I can take those swim goggles, put them on a white background here in the studio, edit them up and deliver them. That's one budget. Alternatively, I can pack up my team, take a bunch of gear, get on the next plane down to Chula Vista, California, go into the Olympic Training Center, hit that Olympic pool, hire Michael Phelps for the day to come in, and as he steps out of the pool with your goggles on his head, that's a whole different budget. So I ask again, what is your budget? I don't always put it to the client quite as abrasive as that, but you get the point here. And if you talk to your client and kind of explain to them all the variables involved, then a lot of times they'll give up the ghost on that, and they'll tell you what their actual budget is because they understand why you're asking at this point. So a lot of what we do, especially with mom and pops, less so the agencies and things, they usually have a budget and they'll throw that out to you. But when you're dealing with smaller businesses or mom and pops, it's an educational process. The same goes with the licensing and all of that stuff that's involved in it as well. So as far as ironing and things like that go, I charge a setup fee for stuff like that. So if a client brings me a product that requires assembly or ironing or sizing of something or whatever it is, I need to spend more time than just the time behind the camera to prep the stuff before it's ready to shoot, then I charge a setup fee. And that may be half of my normal hourly rate or something, because it doesn't take all the creative power to size something or assemble something as it does to photograph something. Hopefully all that helps. That's a ton of information, I know. Rewind if you have to, but for those of you who submitted questions, thank you. If you have questions, throw them down below on this Q&A and I will answer them in the next one. If you liked some of the responses today, give me a little thumbs up, let me know you're liking the content. And if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with everything I've got going on. And if you're so inclined, follow me over on Instagram. That's it for today. I'm out of here.